see that there's going to be an announcement about housing. You know, on the channel, we like to cover it right here. So welcome to the stream. We're going to get started here and just find out what's going on here. It's only labeled as Prime Minister Trudeau makes a housing announcement in Brampton, Ontario. I'm wondering if it's going to be something significant because he's been called out lately when it comes to housing, that's for sure. So let's see. I think that he's just getting out of his...
distancing.
Okay, so this is just the other coverage of it. Hey everyone, if you're just hopping in the chat, let me know that you're here and if it's coming through okay. It's good to see you here. No announcements made yet. We don't know what this is going to be all about, but I figured I'd just throw on the live stream and see what's going on and hang out with you guys for a little bit. So let me know if you can hear everything okay, and let me know where you're tuning in from. If you're, we like to get representation all across Canada, because especially in real estate, markets are different all across the country. All right, let's skip forward a little bit here and see if he's actually getting into... This has just sort of started. Okay, so it looks like he's on some sort of construction site or something like that. I wonder if this is going to be related to the Rapid Housing Initiative. This is something that was sort of brought in to work with municipalities to help build more in different residential areas. But it's kind of an underwhelming program, largely in my eyes and in most people's eyes, because it really hasn't added that much to the supply. It certainly has been good for people who need to get in for affordable housing and start to have like cheaper rentals in certain subsidized areas, but definitely underwhelming in general. The historical announcements from the Liberal government on what they're going to do about housing, and the reality that many people think that it's harder and harder to buy a home, and as a Canadian, you might not be able to do that for future generations, right? If we see these continuing house prices increases and a lack of increase in average wage, right? The inside of the budget that they actually put out back on April 19th of this year, there was some announcements about more funding for the Rapid Housing Initiative, but based on some studying I did of that bill, it seems like it's only going to add roughly 36,000 units, which is just a drop in the bucket. And some of those are just going to be restructuring the old housing and like retrofitting it. So it looks like he's... Okay, here we go. It looks like we're getting right into the press conference here.
Very well. Great to see you guys.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for waiting. Bonjour et bienvenue. I am Kamal Khera, proud Member of Parliament for this beautiful riding of Brampton West, and I would like to extend my warm welcome to all of you. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that here in Brampton, the land on which we are gathered today is situated on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. I'm extremely excited to be joined here by my outstanding colleagues. Allow me to briefly welcome our Team Brampton, a Member of Parliament from Brampton North, Ruby Sahota, Parliamentary Secretary and Member of Parliament from Brampton East, Maninder Sidhu, and Member of Parliament from Brampton South, Sania Sidhu. I'm extremely pleased also to be joined by my good friend, the Honorable Ahmed Hussain, Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. Allow me to also welcome Rael Diamond, President and CEO of Choice Properties, and Adam
We're talking about this guy here. He's the Minister of Housing, but he's also the Minister of many other things as well. It seems like there's not a huge focus on it.
The Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. Welcome, Prime Minister.
Thank you.
The last 16 months have been extremely challenging for everyone, but it is certainly true for our community of Brampton. But every step of the way, our government has supported Canadians and residents of Brampton, whether it was federally funded programs like the CERB, CRB, the Canadian Wage Subsidy, Rent Subsidy, or supports for businesses, for workers, for families, for students and seniors. We made sure that Canadians and Bramptonians, our communities, our families, and our businesses are supported. And thanks to our diverse vaccine portfolio, over 55% of eligible Canadians have been fully vaccinated, and we're now one of the most vaccinated countries in the world. As we inch closer to end this pandemic, the federal government has made it clear we will build back better and stronger than ever before. And building back better means investing in our communities and our families. I'm proud to have worked alongside my incredible Brampton colleagues to have secured hundreds of millions of dollars of federal funding to our communities. Whether it was the largest public transit investment made in Brampton, whether it was leading the charge of investing in green electric buses, or investments like the Riverwalk projects or support for families and children that have helped improve the lives of over 40,000 children right here in Brampton West alone. Our government has shown time and time again that it is here to support Brampton as we build back to our full economic and social potential. We also know that essential part of building back better is ensuring that every Canadian has a place to call home, a place where they can grow, learn, spend time with their loved ones. That is why our government is once again taking steps to ensure that every Canadian has access to safe and affordable housing. At this time last year, Minister Hussain was in Brampton West alongside my Brampton colleagues to make a historic housing announcement, which represented the single largest housing investment ever made by the Government of Canada in the region of Peel. And I'm very excited once again that we're here to bring even more great news for Brampton and for the residents of our community.
I wonder if this
so
will just
allow
be
me,
very
it's
niche.
a great pleasure to introduce
Only
and
for
to
one
welcome
area?
this afternoon my good friend and colleague, the Honourable Ahmed Hussain, Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Because if it's really a housing announcement, it's a little bit odd that they're like that this may be very niche and very specific to an area, because that would make it not so much an announcement, but just like a rehashing
Thank you
of
so
what they've
much,
already said they're
Kamal,
going to
for
do.
that kind introduction. Good afternoon. Bonjour à tous.
Let him come in.
Yeah.
Omar.
Good afternoon, bonjour à tous. I'd like to, of course, begin by also acknowledging that the land we're gathered on today is on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, in particular also the territory of the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Ojibwe, the Chippewa peoples, and the Métis and the Mississaugas of the Credit. It is a pleasure to be here with my outstanding colleagues as well as the Prime Minister for this really important announcement. And I have to say, there is no team like this one, a team that has gone above and beyond over the past few years, but especially over the last 14 months, as we have done everything possible to make sure that Canadians continue to have access to housing that is safe and that meets their needs. The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded all of us, as we've urged Canadians to shelter at home, to curb the spread of the COVID-19 virus, that our homes have become places of sanctuary and refuge in these challenging times. Nous avons parlé avec beaucoup de familles canadiennes, y compris ici à Brampton, qui ont été touchées par cette crise. Et elles nous ont fait part de leur inquiétude et des défis auxquels elles font face.
Just while they're speaking French
We've
here.
spoken directly with
never
many
mind.
families from coast to coast to coast, including right here in Brampton. And they've told us about how they've been impacted by this crisis. And they've shared their concerns and the challenges that they continue to face. And as my colleague has stated, we moved quickly and early during this pandemic to make sure that Canadians have the support that they need. In addition to introducing new programs like the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, we also enhanced existing programs like the Canada Child Benefit to make sure that no Canadian would be put in the impossible position of having to choose between paying their rent and buying groceries.
This is like a
These
campaign
measures have
rally,
provided
less than an
invaluable
announcement.
relief to
Saying, "Hey,
families
look at what we've done."
and to our economy. But we didn't stop there. Budget 2021 continues to support Canadian individuals and families. Cela inclut notamment un investissement sans précédent dans l'histoire du Canada par un gouvernement fédéral pour mettre en place un système d'apprentissage et de garde de jeunes enfants.
Yeah, it really does seem like, and I've seen some people in the chat saying this is just, like, it seems like, okay, it's just like a lot of
early learning and
campaigning,
childcare system,
even though he
that
says
is
he doesn't want an
affordable,
election.
accessible, inclusive, and delivers high-quality early learning and childcare from coast to coast to coast. A system that will cut childcare fees in half by next year and deliver an average of $10 a day in childcare fees within the next 5 years. And a game changer in our fight against the ongoing she-cession by giving working moms and parents real options following school closures across the country, including right here in Brampton. We've recently signed agreements with both British Columbia and Nova Scotia, and we hope and look forward to signing agreements with all provinces and territories soon. The bottom line is we are making investments that leave no one behind. Ce qui nous amène à la raison pour laquelle nous sommes ici aujourd'hui, which is why we're here today. We know that ensuring housing affordability and access and stability for all Canadians is not a quick fix. It requires ambitious targets. It requires consistent and targeted investments. And we know that the cost of living continues to rise. Individuals who make places like Brampton dynamic communities, paramedics, firefighters, teachers, construction workers, those very individuals that contribute to a great quality of life in our communities are having to live further and further away from our major cities because they're finding it harder and harder to access affordable rental units. Since 2015, we've supported the creation of nearly 100,000 units of housing across the country and repaired over 300,000 homes. But we're not done yet because we know the need is great. Through the Rapid Housing Initiative, we're creating housing for the most vulnerable Canadians. Through the National Housing Co-Investment Fund, we're creating deeply affordable housing units from coast to coast to coast. Through the Rental Construction Financing Initiative, we are adding to the rental stock across the country and building the next generation of rental housing across the country by also contributing to affordable, energy-efficient and accessible housing. And through the recent Canada Housing Benefit, we're giving Canadians direct rental supports and supplements so that they can access independent housing that meets their needs. We have many programs working to address the different, unique and varied housing challenges that Canadians face across the country. Our 10-year national housing strategy has grown from $40 billion to over $72.5 billion. And just a few weeks ago, we announced 77 new affordable housing units across Peel region, including an estimated 67 new affordable permanent homes right here in Brampton. And through the Co-Investment Fund, we're building a 6-story, approximately 90-unit building of affordable housing right here in Brampton at the Brampton Bramalea Christian Fellowship Residence. So today's announcement is yet another step in the right direction. It's another tangible effort on behalf of our government to make sure that we are responding to the unique housing needs of residents in Brampton. And I know that before I end, I'd like to turn it over to an individual that has worked tirelessly to prioritize housing, an individual that has made it his #1 priority to make sure that we are delivering on the housing needs of Canadians across the housing spectrum, from the most vulnerable to those who need deeply affordable housing, to those who need rental supplements through the Canada Housing Benefit, and yes, even through the first-time homebuyer incentive to allow more Canadians to access the dream of home ownership. So without any further ado, I want to welcome my friend and my leader, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
That first-time homebuyer incentive is kind of a little bit of a joke. We can talk about that after.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you, Ahmed, for that introduction and for everything you do for families and for all Canadians. It's also great to be here with Minister Alhabra and with our whole Brampton team, Kamal, Sonia, Meninder, and Ruby, for this important announcement today. I want to start today by thanking people across the country for everything you're doing to help beat COVID in Canada. When you roll up your sleeve to get vaccinated, you keep yourself and others safe, and you keep us all on the right path to end the pandemic once and for all. Your efforts are paying off. This weekend, we even passed the US in terms of fully vaccinated people, So let's keep that momentum up. The science is clear. These vaccines are safe and effective. And for those of you who think a first or a second vaccine shot isn't necessary, I ask you to reconsider. Vaccines prevent you from getting sick, from going to the hospital, and from getting your loved ones sick. Now is the time to do it. So if you haven't already done so, make sure you book an appointment and get the shot. We're expecting 7.1 million Pfizer and Moderna doses to arrive in Canada this week. The shots are there for you, and that's good news all around. Thanks to the rising vaccination rates and declining COVID-19 cases, we're able to move forward with adjusted border measures. As long as things stay on the right track, we'll open our borders on September 7th to any traveler who's fully vaccinated with the Canada-approved vaccine
This was just announced
at least
this morning.
14 days before arriving. As a first step, on August 9th, we will be opening non-essential travel to Americans who've been fully vaccinated for at least 14 days. This is in recognition of our unique bond, especially between border communities. À partir du 7 septembre, on va rouvrir nos frontières pour les voyageurs pleinement vaccinés depuis au moins 14
Would you guys be
jours
interested in me covering like general Canadian news too? I was thinking about making a video about like what these new border restrictions are, but I felt like maybe that's out of my scope.
Pleinement vaccinés à partir du 9 août. On continue de suivre une approche mesurée pour la réouverture des frontières. La santé et la sécurité des Canadiens demeurent notre priorité absolue. On ne va jamais faire de compromis là-dessus. Now, on to today's announcement. The people of Brampton have shown true resilience over the last year and a half. I know it hasn't been easy. You've all had to adapt in many different ways. So many of you have made big sacrifices and faced loss. But what didn't change throughout it is the tremendous community spirit here in Brampton and your devotion and commitment to being there for each other. Your very own Member of Parliament, Kamal Kara, proved that when she returned to work as a nurse at the height of the pandemic. Thank you, Kamal. You've inspired your community. You've touched the lives of so many with your dedication and your hard work. Today, we're here because too many Canadians are still facing very real obstacles when it comes to housing affordability and availability. Since 2015, in Brampton alone, we've funded more than 1,600 housing units to tackle the issue. Across the country, we've implemented programs like the First-Time Homebuyers Incentive, which provides support to make mortgages more affordable for younger Canadians.
Except nobody uses
In addition, our rental construction financing initiative has leveraged billions of dollars in private investments to build tens of thousands of new affordable rental units in communities large and small. These are significant accomplishments. Nonetheless, we're looking to the future, knowing we need to do more. That's why Minister Hussen and Deputy Prime Minister Freeland have brought together leaders from all orders of government and across sectors to tackle this pressing issue. We're working hard to develop solutions that will increase the supply of housing for Canadians, from affordable rental units to ownership options. The pandemic has only worsened housing gaps and inequalities, and we know that Canada needs more housing options, and fast. Today, I'm joined by our Brampton team to announce the construction of 302 new affordable rental units here at Mount Pleasant Village. We're building a 26-story residential tower so that hard-working middle-class Canadians will be able to live close to where they work. Take a young grocery store worker who wants to stay in this community but simply can't afford to buy a home and needs more rental options close to their workplace. This is who these affordable units are for. Today's announcement is about increasing the rental supply in Canada, something that has been overlooked for far too many decades. L'annonce d'aujourd'hui fait partie d'un programme qui continue d'aider les familles qui se sentent exclues du marché du logement partout au pays. Alors qu'on travaille à rebâtir
So
en
is this
mieux
going to be
après
like
cette
some sort
pandémie,
of federally
le
subsidized
logement
affordable
abordable
housing?
reste en tête de notre
And like
liste
who
de
manages the
priorités.
buildings and like how do they
More
subcontract
and
them
more young
out, like the
professionals,
management of it?
families,
Lots of
and
questions.
multi-generation households
Are they
are
gonna do
setting
this in more
roots
cities?
here in Brampton. The city is growing at a record speed. We know that buying a home has become beyond the reach of far too many families. That's why we're delivering innovative solutions. We're also finding new ways to create good-paying jobs while we're at it. Take our latest budget investment of $300 million to convert vacant commercial property into hundreds of rental housing units. This is an opportunity for property owners and communities to explore converting excess space into rental housing, thereby making urban communities like Brampton more livable and more affordable. We're also exploring ways to unlock public land as a tool to create affordable units and innovative pathways to home ownership, including rent-to-own models. This kind of leadership and innovative approach to housing is what this country needs. Once people have secure, stable, and affordable housing, they're able to start fulfilling their potential. That's why we shouldn't think of housing as just a problem, but also as a solution. On a réalisé des importants progrès au cours des dernières années, mais on sait qu'il reste encore du travail à faire. Et c'est exactement pour ça qu'on est ici aujourd'hui.
It's a little bit interesting because he brought up the fact that that buying a home has become out of reach for many Canadians. He says, "Oh, we're delivering solutions," but then he like essentially just said our solution is that we're going to create more rental units by converting commercial properties.
Together, we'll keep building a better Canada and a better future for everyone. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Reporter questions, maybe? No? Maybe?
Thank you, Prime Minister, for this extremely important announcement for our community in Brampton. I'm so pleased that now 2 years in a row, we made landmark contributions to ensure that everyone in our community. Thank you very much. Merci.
Is that it?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, just a moment. All right. Thank you, MP Kamal Khera, and welcome everyone to this exciting announcement today. On behalf of Mitchell Cohen, our President and CEO, and all of us at the Daniels Corporation, I am thrilled to welcome Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Minister Ahmed Hussein, Minister Omar Al-Gabra, and MPs Ruby Sahota, Maninder Sidhu, and Sonia Sidhu to our MPV community. I would also like to acknowledge Real Diamond.
Okay, I feel like this is less consequential. I'm going to keep it here in the background. But, okay, so interesting. Definitely, so it's likely going to be funded through some of the other things that have been passed through Bill C-30. That was the Budget Implementation Act. Okay, Alex, you have some insight here. You're saying Brampton is converting a lot of high-density commercial units to rental units as retail spaces lost lots of value over the past 18 months. Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense to do, right? You see all these commercial spaces and large, especially office buildings and things like this, that, like, largely people have had to, or they had to work from home during the pandemic, right? So people started realizing, companies started realizing, hey, we can do a lot of this from home and cut down on costs and overhead. And so obviously that has hurt commercial buildings, right? These larger office buildings, as well as certain other supply chain based businesses that maybe don't actually need to route through the places they previously were. So it definitely makes sense to convert that into something that's going to be used. I was just hoping for a little bit more information, about what their plan is really going forward, if there's any sort of plan to make actually owning a home a little bit more accessible for Canadians. It's definitely going to be one of the biggest talking points if there is an election here in September, which many of us think that there will be. Yeah, because that's something that he's largely been called out on, saying both the Conservatives and the NDP have been really at their throats saying, hey, you're not doing anything to make housing more affordable for Canadians. And I'm certainly of the state of mind that housing can be a way, if used properly, a great way to build wealth in Canada, not just through appreciation, but through the other ways that owning a home can pay you, right? Through paying down your mortgage and potentially renting out portions of your home in order to sort of subsidize your own mortgage so that you can save more, less money going into your mortgage. You end up paying less to live in a house if you rent it out in the right way than you would if you were in a rental unit, and then you can save more and invest more. And I think that's one of the fundamental building blocks of building wealth, is that getting those living costs down as much as possible. So I would be interested in hearing like what the plan is here to allow more Canadians to get into homes and actually own them and be building equity over the long term. Right? That's the interesting thing to me. I think that there's a
very talented and hardworking.
Yeah, I think this is just the the representatives from the company that are actually doing the construction here. So I'm just gonna mute that and throw on full cam for a minute, and just chat for a bit. We're likely gonna close this up in the next little while. But if you have any questions about what's going on here, or any questions in general, I always like to, at the end of these live streams, do a little bit of Q&A and talk about things. Alex, yeah, and you can do what Alex just did there in the chat and go at Russell Matthews, and it'll show up for me on my end in orange, so I can actually see it a little more clearly. And Alex is saying, you're a realtor. Do you really believe they have any interest in providing affordable housing? Well, in terms of affordable housing, in terms of affordable rental units, like they are taking action on that. I don't think that they are truly incentivized to provide options for people to actually own homes long term. I think, is Trudeau coming back to the mic? I've got it up here on my other screen. It looks like he is. I'm going to flip over here and we'll get back to the chat.
I'll take questions from the media.
Media questions.
One question, and if you have a follow-up afterwards.
This is where we get the real good info, because like it's not part of their scripted plan thing.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. My name is Nada Zafar. I'm from The Pointer. This question is for the Prime Minister as well as for Minister Hussein. This announcement is a step in the right direction, but enough money has just never been put into affordable housing in Peel. And there is a very, very large gap that a couple hundred units is just not going to begin to cover. So how can the federal government help close the gap? And will the government commit to creating a Peel-specific housing strategy?
We've recognized over the past number of years that the federal government had to get back into the business of investing in housing. When we arrived in 2015, the federal government had removed itself entirely from the business of investing in housing, and therefore we had some catching up to do. That's why we invested historic amounts in a national housing strategy to kick things off. In 2017, we announced the rental construction financing initiative that actually is what has led to this current construction here. But not just this one. We invested $10 billion over the past years to create 30,000 units through this investment in partnership with the private sector. And almost half of those units, about 14,500, were developed in Ontario alone. So we have made significant steps through that initiative, but also through other initiatives, whether it's the Rapid Housing Initiative, whether it's through the First-Time Homebuyers Incentive, whether it's through a range of investments that have allowed for low-income housing and housing affordability. But we recognize there's more to do, and we will continue to do it. I can understand that the need is great and far too many families are struggling, and that's why this government continues to step up and deliver real results for people across Peel and indeed right across the country.
So just a quick follow-up, is a Peel-specific strategy something in the works or a possibility?
We've continued to work with our outstanding group of MPs here to move forward on every project we can. We continue to look at more opportunities. We recognize that here in Peel the growth rates and the needs are quite significant, and that's why we have been investing so much in this area. But for more details on that, I'm happy to turn it over to Minister Hussein to complete this a little bit. Ahmed.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The only thing I would add is, so last year we made an announcement of $276 million specifically for Peel Region. Peel Region had gotten together and announced an ambitious 10-year plan worth $1 billion to tackle severe and core housing need in this region. And we stepped up to help them get to that target by contributing $276 million, which was the largest historic investment, the largest investment by the federal government in affordable housing in Peel Region. On top of that, we've included Peel Region in the Rapid Housing Initiative, as the Prime Minister has indicated. There are a number of projects that have been either committed or built through the National Housing Co-Investment Fund to introduce deeply affordable housing units in Peel Region. We continue to work with the with all the municipalities in Peel Region to make sure that the federal government is there for them as they also step up to add to the stock of affordable housing supply in this region. I joined the Prime Minister in saying that, of course, there's always more work to be done, but we have, of course, substantially invested in this region because we know the need is great, but we'll continue to do that, and more work needs to be done, absolutely.
Hello,
Okay.
Jamie with City TV, and I'm asking this question on behalf of Enrique, who is with Omni Television. As we see the situation in Afghanistan deteriorate, Sikh communities in Canada are worried about minorities in Afghanistan who have often been the target of extremists. Is there plans and work to accept these refugees? Are we going to accept refugees? Great.
We have been working over the past number of years on initiatives regarding Afghan Sikhs. We have had good progress on that, and we actually continue to work on it. We understand how concerning the current deterioration of the situation in Afghanistan is for many people who have loved ones over there. I can assure you that our Minister of Immigration, Marco Mendicino, is working directly on this file alongside many members of our caucus who've been advocating strongly for this.
Thank you.
Prabjot Sohal, Red FM. My question is that the pandemic has been very hard on some big box warehouse workers like Amazon, and currently there is a drive to unionize Amazon workers. U.S. President Joe Biden had backed up these efforts and said that there will be no intimidation or pressure tactics that will be tolerated. What is going to be your stand about Amazon workers' union drive?
I think one of the things that's been very, very clear over the past number of years of our leadership is that we consider that labor and that unions are an essential part of growing the middle class. The work that organized labor has done across the country, across decades, has led in large part to the prosperity we're seeing in this country now. And through our close working partnership with organized labor over the past years, we have seen many, many significant things of progress, and not just in terms of outcomes for workers, but in terms of outcomes for things that have mattered for the entire country. When we were renegotiating the NAFTA agreement, we made sure that top labor leaders were part of our NAFTA Advisory Council to make sure that we were standing up for workers' rights.
That's still called
As a
USMCA.
government, we have always been there to stand up for workers, whether it was steel or aluminum workers in the face of unfair tariffs from the Trump administration, or whether it's through investing in solutions for labor like apprenticeships and training. We will continue to work hand in hand with organized labor as they continue to stand up for workers in all industries, in all areas across the country.
But he doesn't say whether or not he supports.
Hi, Prime Minister. Heather Butts with CTV National News.
unionizing.
CTV News has spoken to interpreters on the ground in Afghanistan who are fearful for their lives. Over the last couple of weeks, you and your ministers have said you are working on a plan to help interpreters who worked with the CIF. And earlier today, your Deputy Prime Minister said that she's confident that you'll do the right thing. But people want a clear plan. So, Prime Minister, when will you announce a firm plan to rescue and resettle Afghan interpreters who say they're Taliban targets because of their service to Canada?
Around the world, there are always Canadians who've worked hard to support people and had relied on local locally engaged staff, either at embassies or people like interpreters and guides in some of the most dangerous parts of the world. Canadians continue to have engagements around the world, and people around the world are supporting them. It is so important that we be there for people who've put their lives at risk to support Canadians, and that's why we are working extremely hard, and we'll have more to say very soon on how we're going to be supporting those people in Afghanistan, interpreters, guides, drivers, locally engaged consular staff who've been there to help Canada make a difference in that country and around the world. I can tell you I've had recent conversations with ministers on this, and we're getting very close to being able to make an announcement.
I'll just ask one follow-up to that, because you didn't provide a timeline for when exactly we'll hear the clear plan. So I just wanted to get your take on this then. Interpreters say they're in hiding in Afghanistan, and now CAF veterans, our veterans, are stepping in and organizing their own evacuation plans. So how do you feel that veterans are stepping in the absence of a government plan?
Okay. First of all, it is not the habit of the government to announce announcements that we're going to be announcing later. We make announcements when we're ready to make the commitment and actually take action. And that is what we are making sure that we are doing. This is an extremely important issue to this government. It is extremely important to many veterans, as you've pointed out, who feel strongly that we need to support the people who supported them, and we agree. That is why we are working to ensure that we are able to provide sanctuary to those people and their families who have supported Canadians over our many years of engagement in Afghanistan.
Hello, Prime Minister. This is Jasleen from BTC Punjabi. My question is about NRI fraud marriages. There have been many complaints about NRI fraud marriages. Some people are making big money by arranging wedding ties in India and helping in getting Canadian citizenship here. There has been a recent case in Punjab where a boy has committed suicide and the girl is here in Toronto. This case is all over social media. Chairperson of the Women Commission in Punjab has written a letter to you this morning requesting to take some rapid action and stop such exploitation and bring the culprits to justice. She has also requested for operations to deport such fraudsters, including confiscation of passports. Will you think of bringing changes to the immigration rules?
It is a particularly vile practice that fraudulent immigration consultants impose on people who are desperately seeking a better life to come to Canada. If someone can promise to you that they can accelerate your file to the Government of Canada, they're lying to you. Yes, there are legitimate immigration consultants who can help you with the processes, but there are too many people making promises to vulnerable people that they simply cannot back up. Again, the Government of Canada has taken a number of steps to crack down on fraudulent immigration consultants. That's why I would encourage everyone to consult the official Government of Canada websites for information on how to protect themselves from fraudulent extortionists and criminals who will try and take your money and not deliver you on the promise of coming to Canada. We will continue to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect vulnerable people around the world from these criminal practices. But as you know, many of these people are based in other countries and are beyond the reach of Canadian law. And that's why I impress upon people here in Canada to tell your acquaintances, tell your family members that the immigration processes are available through the Government of Canada website, and to be very careful of people who are promising you easy answers to what is necessarily a complex system.
My follow-up is that will government think of tightening the immigration rules in Canada?
No, we're not going to tighten immigration rules. We know how important it is to continue to be open to people coming to this country, bringing family members over, joining family members for important occasions like funerals and weddings. It's been a long pandemic and far too many families have been separated, and quite frankly, Canada needs more people coming to build their lives and their future in Canada so we can pick up the pace of this recovery. We're going to continue to be the open, generous country we've always been, continue to take advantage of the fact that Canadians remain positive towards immigration, even as so many other countries turn their backs. The Liberal Party has always been the party of immigration. We will continue to make sure that we have a strong, rigorous, but generous immigration system to allow people to come, build their lives here, and build our country better every step of the way.
My name is Amir Tufail from Parwasi Television. Government is taking an initiative to support green energy, which is phenomenal. However, what we have seen is all the places of worship have been excluded from the list. They will not be facilitated with this green energy initiative. What are the reasons behind it, and why the places of worship are being ignored in this regard?
First of all, there is not one green initiative that this government is putting forward. We've put forward multiple initiatives to help Canadians, to help businesses, to help nonprofit and private and public sector institutions green their profiles, whether it's with retrofits, whether it's with investments, whether it's by putting a price on pollution to encourage people to make choices that pollute less. We will continue to have programs that are there to support a better energy efficiency. This initiative we're investing in right here, was glad to see it's going to feature significant geothermal sources of energy. We will always encourage everyone to look at ways where they can green their footprints regardless of what institution you're part of. And there are many programs to encourage that, but there's a lot of people doing it on their own as well because they know it's the right thing, that it's not just the path to a cleaner and better future for future generations. It's also a path to saving money, creating jobs, and growing our economy in the right ways.
Mon nom est Freddy Matin, je travaille pour Radio-Canada. La question s'adresse au Premier ministre. La frontière rouvrira donc dans les semaines prochaines pour les voyageurs des États-Unis, donc les citoyens américains.
So lots of interesting stuff that he mentioned there at the beginning. We got a little bit off topic with a lot of the reporters there. But they were really emphasizing the first-time homebuyer plan, and that, if you're not familiar with that, it hasn't really been taken up largely. I'm just going to speak over him while he's speaking French because I know most of my audience here is English-speaking, and if he gives an answer in English, we'll flip back over to it. We'll see if we can get the volume down a little bit more. Yeah. So, but the first-time homebuyer incentive, it really hasn't been too effective, and not many people have taken it up. And essentially what it is it's the federal government taking on a portion of your mortgage, allowing you to qualify for a mortgage because they're taking on a certain percentage of it, but they're actually taking almost like an equity stake in your home. And whenever you sell that home down the road, and a few other times, I believe, I need to look into it again to see how exactly it functions, but you actually have to pay back the government based on the gains that you make on the property. So, I mean, like the first-time homebuyer incentive, also the government is, and if the more people take on this first-time homebuyer incentive, the more the government has equity stakes in housing in Canada, which means if housing prices continue to go up, they make more money back from the loan that they're essentially giving to people. I haven't really thought about it through that lens before, but that's an interesting sort of angle on it too.
Et à chaque étape, on va continuer de surveiller pour s'assurer qu'on est en train de protéger la sécurité et la santé de tous les Canadiens.
Une dernière question, Monsieur le Premier ministre, si c'est possible aussi de répondre en anglais à la fin. Est-ce que le gouvernement est prêt à mettre en place rapidement certaines des recommandations émises par le Conseil national de musulmans canadiens, notamment en ce qui concerne les changements au code criminel et pour ce qui est de la mise en place d'un bureau du rapporteur spécial de l'islamophobie? Merci.
Tout d'abord, il n'y a pas de place pour l'islamophobie au Canada.
Okay. Yeah, lots of interesting things here in the chat. Yeah, R. Krishnik says sell before the real estate bubble pops. Canada's about 30% overvalued. USA is about 20. I mean, like it definitely feels like we're in that sort of space where things are overvalued. But are they really overvalued based on all of the like macroeconomic things that have been happening almost worldwide? It's not just Canada and the States that have seen home prices increase. It's most developed nations, especially the ones who have gone forward with QE programs or quantitative easing, essentially money printing. It's not actually like paper printing, but it's addition of money into the system to provide sort of stimulus throughout the pandemic. But the problem is it also leads into equities as well as real estate investments bumping up in value. So are we at the end of that? The Bank of Canada is slowly starting to taper. Oh, here's some English. Here we go.
Seriously, as a country, we'll continue to stand alongside standing against anti-Semitism, against anti-black racism, against all forms of intolerance, including the troubling rise in anti-Asian racism that we've seen over the past months of this pandemic. We know that there is much more to do, which is why we've organized a forum against Islamophobia next week. That will allow us to hear from the National Council of Muslims, but also a broad range of experts and community representatives who will talk about what we can do more as a country to fight against Islamophobia. There are many things the federal government has been doing and will continue to do, but there are many things also provincial and municipal governments, as well as ordinary Canadians, can do to fight against Islamophobia and intolerance and hate.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. AJ here from Pravasi Radio. And my question is, we have seen that businesses have suffered a lot during crisis last year, and it seems presumably that it's going to take a year more to recover. So what are your measures of your government to facilitate these businesses further?
We know that businesses across the country have been hard hit by the pandemic. We know that this has been extremely difficult for everyone, with sacrifices made, with challenges faced, with loss and heartbreak throughout this pandemic. But at the same time, we've seen Canadians come together, and we made a very direct promise to Canadians that we would be there to have Canadians' backs, and that's exactly what we've done. With historic records, historic levels of investment in communities, in workers, in families, in women, in seniors, in young people, and in small businesses. We're going to continue to work to be there for Canadians, to be there for small businesses as we come through this pandemic and as we move beyond into building back better.
Thank you.
Hi, Holly Mackenzie-Suter with Canadian Press. I'm here to ask you about the U.S.-Canada border. I'm just wondering, have you been in touch with U.S. President Joe Biden about your government's announcement that fully vaccinated Americans can enter Canada as of August 9th? And when do you expect the U.S. will reciprocate and allow fully vaccinated Canadians into that country?
First of all, from the very beginning, way back to March 2020, we have always been in close communication with the American government in terms of our border, in terms of measures that we've taken going forward. Every country makes its own decisions about what it does as its borders, but the fact that we've been aligning ourselves as closely as we have over the past year and a half has been extremely positive for our country and for both of our countries. I can tell you that as we made decisions around reopening to the world in early September and to American travelers a few weeks before that, we kept the American government fully apprised of exactly those issues. We will continue to work with them, but understand and respect that every country makes its own decisions about what it does at its borders.
Thanks. And follow up about your previous statement that 75% of Canadians would need to be fully vaccinated before the U.S. border reopens. The Canada Gazette recently revised an order in council to remove the 75% benchmark. So why did you and your government change your minds about requiring that level of vaccination before reopening the border?
We said from the very beginning that we would take a gradual and progressive approach on reopening the border, and we are doing exactly that. We've seen record levels of vaccination. Canada is leading the world in terms of first doses, and we've just surpassed the Americans in terms of fully vaccinated Canadians. We're going to continue to move forward in a thoughtful and responsible way, but the fact is people need to continue to get vaccinated with their second doses, and those who've been hesitant need to get their first doses. We are going to be seeing cases continue around the world, even as Canada gets the vaccine, the virus under control. And the cases of people getting severe outcomes or being hospitalized or even dying in the coming months will be primarily amongst people who are unvaccinated. So there are people who are thinking that, oh, you know what, so many people around me have gotten vaccinated that maybe I don't need to get vaccinated. Well, those are the people who are actually going to be at risk of getting COVID and getting serious complications from COVID over the coming months. So again, we need to encourage everyone to get vaccinated as soon as possible so we can all get back to all the activities that we care about while keeping our loved ones safe.
Hi, Prime Minister. Thanks for taking my question. Well, once the life goes back to the normal, the large number of people will be coming from overseas. So what are the measurements for healthcare and housing sector for them?
The reality is we will continue to be open to immigration from around the world. We will continue to make sure that we are protecting Canadians, that we are keeping health and safety at the forefront of all of our reflections, but at the same time, we will ensure that we are engaging with the world in responsible, positive ways. And that's exactly what we've already done and what we will continue to do. This is something that matters to all of us, and opening to the world in safe ways is what today's earlier announcement by the ministers was all about.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question about autism. Let me highlight that as a federal government, we've continued to move forward on an autism strategy and, quite frankly, worked closely with the provinces on that. We recognize that healthcare is provincial, but the federal government has been there to provide support on autism, and we will continue to. It is something important for all of us. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, sir. Merci tout le monde. Oh, a mask.
Okay, so I guess that's it for the press conference. Interesting stuff. Yeah, we got a lot of questions, not really centered on housing. I was sort of expecting the questions to be a little bit more focused on what was initially announced to be what was actually behind this. We heard from Trudeau, the main announcement, if anyone is just tuning in now, it's the construction of 302, I believe. What was that the number? I might have, like a 26th floor, was it? Apartment building just in Brampton specifically. Not too many answers on what their plan is like on a nationwide basis, but it does seem like there's more emphasis on rental than actually providing any sort of new measures to actually get people into owning homes. So that was interesting. We were talking a little bit about the first-time home buyer plan, and that seems to be the thing that they're that at least the Liberals are really pushing and saying, hey, look at what we've done, look how helpful it is. There are some people that have used it and it has been helpful for them to get into a home, but it's been largely underused, and it doesn't, especially with the price growth now, there are certain stipulations and qualifications that are hard to meet. It has to be under a certain amount, and that's different based on which city you're in, whether you're in a major city or out sort of on the fringes, farther away from those cities. Maybe not fringes isn't the good word, the best word, but outside of these major markets that have seen extreme price growth. But now I don't think any market's
Good morning,
really
everyone. Thank you for joining us here on a windy day. It's always windy.
This is nothing. Okay. Just my a video playing in the background from me pausing that last stream. But yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, what we're gonna do here again, like I said, there's maybe about 5 minutes here of Q&A about anything. You know, here on the channel we talk about Canadian news, personal finance, investing, real estate, a little bit of cryptocurrency thrown in there too. That's something that I'm super interested in lately, and I think more and more people are getting interested in. A little bit of a bear market right now, but yeah, if you have any questions, you can type into the chat at Russell Matthews, like a lot of people have been doing, and it'll help me to see it a little bit more clearly so that I will have a higher chance of getting to your question. But we're only going to go for about 10 minutes or so here. Evan starting it off saying, Russell, do you think that they're more trying to keep real estate prices high to stop overstretched people from defaulting on their mortgages? So what you're saying is that your idea is that if there are higher real estate prices, people who can't afford higher real estate prices won't be able to get them. Therefore, they're less likely to default on their mortgages and not being able to make those payments. I mean, I see where you're coming from. I see the line of thinking. But the reality is the qualification, the numbers that you need to qualify, like the mortgage qualifications, that hasn't really changed. A little bit of up and down here. Like there was an announcement a couple months ago about it, them having like the mortgage stress test going up a little bit. But largely, no matter what the price of the home is, you still need to be able to qualify for a mortgage at that price, right? Certainly, if you're going through any insured mortgage, that's for sure. Now there are other private lenders and like B lenders. Like we talk about A lenders, B lenders, and C lenders when it comes to mortgages. A's being the big banks, B's being like credit unions, and C's being like private lenders. Typically higher interest rate the farther away you get from those A lenders. So yeah, I don't think that they're trying to keep real estate prices high to stop overstretched people from defaulting on their mortgages. I think that there are other things that kind of incentivize the continued growth of real estate in Canada more so than just wanting people not to default. I mean, growth in housing looks pretty good on Canadian GDP as well. Also increases spending because people are able to take the equity out of their homes and spend it on more consumer goods. So the more housing grows, it sort of grows hand in hand with the economy in general, which makes numbers look good. Alex McKinnon says, yo, Russell, with pullback in the market right now, what are some of your stock picks you may be considering? I think when it comes to picking stocks, that it's very, very tough to, and this is my problem with some other YouTubers who give out very specific stocks that they say like, hey, you should invest in this, because I think investing is so much a personal thing. You need to know where you're at in your life, what are your goals, what are your priorities, right, and what's your risk tolerance. That's the tricky thing. I think for the vast majority of investors, the best bet is a diversified index fund portfolio, index ETFs that track the broad market in general. So you, especially if you don't have the time to do the research into each company. For me personally, because I'm so young and because also I have the time and it's one of my interests and I spend a lot of time doing it, I will pick individual stocks. And I have a sort of a two basket sort of strategy where I have like that diversified portfolio of index ETFs, maybe some Canadian blue chip dividend stocks. And then I also am putting more and more of my portfolio into sort of higher risk assets, tech stocks, as well as crypto and other growth stocks, right? We talk about growth stocks and there's other growth stocks are typically will see potentially more growth over the long term than some of these more established companies, but there's also more risk that they could go down. Whereas on the other end of things, if you have like a blue chip stock, typically they're going to pay you dividends, right? So there's lots of different strategies. This is just sort of me talking about stocks for a little bit, but it's such a personal thing. And it's something we talk about a lot more in the Canada Money Mastery program. Link in the description, 40% off with coupon code GROW. We go into way more detail there if you're interested. But lots of things to talk about on that front. Isaiah says, Russell, do you think they will regulate the market? Where's the accountability? Yeah, it's tricky because I don't think that they're going to come in with any major regulations here. to sort of hone in the housing market, especially because we've seen a decrease in sales, a decrease in volume over the past 3 months, right? Like March, we can say now after 3 months that was the peak, at least for this next little while, of housing activity. What's going to be really interesting to watch is the sales to new listings ratio, because ultimately that's the measure of supply versus demand, which is really what's going to affect either house prices going up or house prices going down, right? Sales to new listings, right? The amount of sales, houses taken off the market because of sale has happened, to new listings, the amount of new listings brought into the market. It's sort of that ratio that I most closely keep my eye on to say, like, okay, is this sort of slowly shifting into more of a buyer's market? Right now, it's still firmly in a seller's market until we get through more of that inventory that's already up there. Great question. Ola BC says, how legitimate is Bitcoin/cryptocurrency business? Crypto, I think, is a very, very interesting space. It's something that I'm super interested in and dedicating a lot of time into researching and understanding. But I think that before you ever would, and again, this is just a place to start. This is not investment advice. Nothing I ever say here on this channel is investing advice, legal advice, or any advice. Otherwise, it's just a place for you to start. Obviously, those legal disclaimers that you have to say when you're making content like this. But I think that there's a lot of interesting things going on in cryptocurrency. It feels like, and certainly in the things that I'm most interested in, it feels like sort of a development of a sort of new way that we can use the internet. And I think that you really need to do your research, though, and really have a strong conviction on why you believe in what you believe in, and why you're investing in what you're investing in. I don't think it's the best place for you for people to just go in hoping to make a quick buck. I'm investing in cryptocurrency, mostly Ethereum. Ethereum and Bitcoin, but mostly Ethereum, especially these days, based on the research I've been doing, for the long term. If my investment goes down 50% tomorrow, I wouldn't sell it, right? I think it's especially in these more volatile assets, it's important to have a long runway before you would be forced to sell for your retirement or whatever else. But that's sort of my view on things right now. Alex K says, and I know I'm getting a little bit behind here on questions, but Alex K says, do you think multifamily or single family will do better in the next 12 months? That's interesting. It's tough to know for sure. I think a lot of it comes down to the way that those are valued differently. Right? When we talk about single family homes, those are very comparable based. When we talk about multifamily, that's actually valued through a capitalization rate, or essentially how quickly in owning the property you would pay off the property with the net cash flow coming in. So it's tricky to tell for sure, but if we have low interest rates, I think that does favor single family a little bit more, because some of these commercial loans aren't at quite as low of an interest rate as the single families. But I don't think anyone really has a crystal ball there, Alex. I think that your guess would be as good as mine on that. All right. Ruth says, Russell, please do a video about the new regulations for traveling, what Canadians need to come back to Canada. Yeah, I'm going to look into the announcements from today, and I'll make a quick video. I was thinking about making one of those shorts. Have you guys ever seen one of those? Like, like the vertical YouTube shorts that you sort of like, it's like almost like scrolling on TikTok. I was thinking for some of these things that I don't have as much insight in terms of talking a ton about something or going into super depth. If it's just a little bit of information, if I can do it in under a minute and make one of those shorts, that's what I was thinking about potentially trying. Awesome. Ben says the deep whales in cryptocurrency is world power corporations like BlackRock and Vanguard is completely centralized, giving government ultimate power over your wallet. They can turn you off. Maybe I would love to see more data to back up something like that, like BlackRock and Vanguard actually being the whales in cryptocurrency, or the people who largely hold it. Yeah, maybe I should make the short and get millions of views. Some do, some really pop off. Like I was, you just, because you can just like scroll through those forever. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We did a little bit of a short Q&A there, getting my thoughts on a couple different things. But yeah, overall, kind of underwhelming housing announcement when you see a big thing that's titled Trudeau housing announcement, when it's more focused on affordable rental units being built. But I think that paying attention to what's going on in this space is definitely going to be important going forward, especially if there's that election, because it seems like housing is going to be one of those main talking points. And of course, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel with your friends if you get any value out of it. I'd definitely appreciate that. And I'll keep you posted about all this stuff as it goes on. And I'm planning on covering any election that we see here in the future pretty heavily too, so stick around for that. But with all that said, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody, and I'll probably be uploading another video this evening with some of those guidelines, so I'll see you then. But until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a great rest of your Monday. See ya.